So I'm speaking with the composing duo Joe Henson and Alexis Smith, also known as The Flight. The duo have worked across all mediums composing scores for films, television, games, and commercials. Their two new big projects will without a doubt be on many gamers' TV screens with the games Alien Isolation and LittleBigPlanet 3. Alexis, Joe, thanks so much for chatting today, especially, with the big time difference.
No problem at all.
It's 4 o'clock here. We're just having a cup of tea and ending a quiet day.
Oh, that's perfect. I'm just starting probably a busy day. So, so to start, there have been a lot of many great composing duos, and I'm wondering how a partnership like this starts. When did you two meet? Why did you decide to kind of band together instead of kind of becoming solo composers?
Well, we met when Joe had a band and I was hired to produce the album. We both come from a records background. Joe's a player by trade, and I started off as a programmer and a producer. And I was hired to produce his band's album, and in doing so, we both realised we just had a connection.
We didn't hate each other. we didn't want to kill each other.
We worked together really well instantly. We kind of obviously had the kind of not exactly the same musical background, but the same kind of outlook on things, and always seemed to agree about where tracks should go and everything like that. So we we kept in touch afterwards, and eventually a couple of projects came along, and we just thought, let's do these together, and it just seemed to work. It's one of those sort of once in a lifetime things.
Mm-hmm.
Never met anyone else that either of us could work with.
He told someone the other day, I work with Joe because he's nice and quiet. Yes, you did. I sit behind him and I don't make it. No, it's not. We get on really well. It's good for people out there who is kind of starting off in the business. If you meet somebody you like, keep in touch with them, because they're few and far between in in the music industry.
So neither of us really like working on our own, and we both kind of feel it's a shame that music has become something that a lot of the time is done on your own.
Yeah.
We both kind of started. Well, I mean, Joe played in bands, and I started as an apprentice to a very well-known record producer, and everything kind of that I was taught and learned when I was learning was always, you always worked in teams. You always had more than one person in the studio, and you always have someone to bounce your ideas off.
You're always better when working with somebody else. Somebody else will always bring something which you would never have thought of, and it's a shame that music has become kind of a laptop industry now, really.
Right, and I agree with that, because I think music, and especially anything in the creative fields, is about collaboration and bouncing ideas off, and even composers these days, they get criticized for having teams of people, but it's like, why should they? It's not a solo project.
But everyone thinks the team of people is well, I suppose same in the art field. There are teams of people not because they're doing stuff for you, it's because they're bringing something else to the table.
Right,
and it keeps you sane as well. It's very hard to know. You're working on something for a long time. It's really hard to know if it's any good or not when you're just working on it yourself.
Right.
And if you find someone you trust and you can work together with, then I think it's a no-brainer for us. Yeah.
So, what exactly are your musical backgrounds, and kind of what do you both bring to the group? Like, from what kind of areas do you guys kind of complement each other? You kind of how does that work?
Well, it's difficult. Somebody said our voices sound exactly the same. I'm Joe. I'm from. I used to play in a band called the Freestylers in the 90s,
mm-hmm.
which was like a dance kind of breakbeat act, which was a very, very big live, very, very big live act. I played bass with them. We were a big festival band, and Alexis was Maris de Vries's programmer.
So what really hooked me into music was when I started making started discovering electronic music and sequencers and samplers and all that. That's what really kind of hooked me in. So I worked for 5 years with Maris de Vries, doing lots of sort of really well-known artists and kind of learnt my trade from him. And Joe played with bands all around the world, and then started composing for TV.
I was doing, actually when we first met, I was doing a lot of kind of TV stuff, kind of National Geographic and all that kind of stuff. And that's when we started working together, because you were doing a lot of stuff with records and I was doing a lot of stuff in TV, and we were kind of job sharing a lot of that stuff, and that's kind of where everything started, really.
Oh, cool. And so that what kind of pushed you to that kind of visual medium? Why did you decide, okay, television, film, the visual stuff? What really kind of appealed to you there?
My family there's a lot of actors in my family, so it's kind of going into the TV world is quite a natural thing. My brother was a film composer, or is a film composer and TV composer, so I started picking up work from him. I actually remember coming back from a tour and doing bass on Spy Game, and I did the session about 4 o'clock in the morning, came straight off the tour bus and did it, and then got back on the tour bus and gave him absolute hell. But that was kind of the first kind of taste of doing kind of film stuff.
Wow.
Yeah, and for me, it's just I like just doing lots of different things. It keeps you fresh and keeps you interested, and well,
that's what Marius is really good at as well. He does loads of films.
Yeah, I mean, he's started since we still work together occasionally, but not all the time. And he is now composing for films as well. So I think it's something you start to do as you get a bit older. You get a bit more. You get
tired.
Maybe you get because pop music is a cutting edge industry, and it changes all the time. And maybe when you start composing visual media, maybe it's a little bit more kind of an experience thing. You're a bit more. Your experience is a bit more respected, rather than just have you got the hot sound at the moment. You know?
Yeah.
Right. And so I'd love to jump kind of into your two recent projects. Let's start with Alien Isolation, which is, this is a giant franchise, obviously in film, but also in gaming. There's been so many Alien games. There's been so many composers who have taken their crack at the Alien world. So where is the starting point? What was your step one? Like, where do you even begin with an Alien franchise like this?
Well, first thing we did was obviously watch the film. Not that I have, it's one of those films. I think all of the team working on it. It's one of those films that you watch every year. Never seem to get tired of.
Yeah, I mean, we loved the film.
Yeah,
both of us independently. So
and then we kind of luckily, with Creative Assembly, we licensed a few of the cues from the original film. So stylistically, that was a really good place to start. And also it was a great way to start where you're not just trying to pastiche and trying to do a kind of thing that kind of sounds like Alien but isn't. We had the real cues to start from. I
think a big thing of what makes this what they hoped that would make this game different than any of the others, and I think it's been successful, is the authenticity. From every aspect of this game's design, the feel, the lighting, the acting, the music, everything is trying to be authentic to that original 1979 film.
Yeah,
and of course, we had to mirror that in the music. And yeah, as Joe said, luckily we actually had licensed the key themes from the Jerry Goldsmith.
But it was only like
score.
4 minutes.
But
of music, wasn't it?
Yeah, exactly. So it gave us the feeling and the atmosphere of the original. But then we had to then go off and write 3 hours of music in a video game, which is obviously very different than scoring a set film.
Right.
But there are key things that were, as well as thematic things, there are key kind of sounds in that score which instantly make you think of Alien. And we always, the main one for us is we called it the Alien Wail, which is like this woo sound which you get a lot in the score, and it was working out how they did that, and there were lots of different ways of doing that. But as soon as you put things like that, or the Colenio, the orchestral snaps, which sound you get in the film, once you put those in, it instantly can bring you straight back to the world of Alien.
Yeah, so we had these sort of key sounds and motifs, which then we had to use and develop and sort of not spread out, but we had access to a palette of what Alien sounds like.
Or that was quite a personal thing. That was something quite a personal thing for each of us to kind of work
out. Even when we'd kind of gone to, because we wanted the score to kind of feel like a journey, as you went through the game. Even when we were furthest away from the kind of actual sound of the original film, we still had these kind of motifs and sonic motifs as well that we could always come back to.
Yeah.
Right, and it is a survival kind of horror game, which means there's a lot of tension and build up. And do you as the composers know where the developers are going to use the music? I mean, do you kind of have an idea of how to build a narrative, or is it just kind of creating an atmosphere within certain areas of the game?
It's a bit of both, really. There's quite a lot of fixed moments that we know how long they're going to, where they're going to happen and how long they're going to be and what we have to do in the score. But then you get into the interactive music and it is a lot more random. Yeah, you have to.
But we still apply rules to it. So that's based on where you are in the spaceship, how far into the game you are. Because the game is basically set in one place, so you have to give different feels and sounds to the different areas as you're going around the ship, and it can be quite subtle. But you have to make different parts of the game feel different. Otherwise, it's going to get pretty tedious.
Yeah, but you're right. You don't know exactly how the player's going to play it, and so that is. I mean, we quite enjoy it, but it is one of the puzzles of interactive music. This, I think, a lot of it was to, as you say, provide terror and provide scariness. So, in a way that it wasn't not so complicated as some other sort of music systems that we've worked in before.
The system was complicated, but the actual music was we've actually found it quite simple.
And what they were trying to do was easy to understand.
Scary.
Very
scary.
And this is not really. It's not like the last game was more guns, shooting, a lot of action. This is definitely more. And you don't even have a weapon. You have the radar. And so is silence and quiet, is that part of kind of the whole soundscape too? Do you need to know when to draw back and just let the air kind of sit?
Well, a lot of that was down to Byron and the guys at Creative Assembly, the audio team there.
But definitely, there's a massive part of any kind of tense, tension experience. Silence is a really powerful.
We had builds when we're writing for games. We like to have a build or a video running of the game being played, and a lot of the time, if you write without the game playing, you overdo the music. And a lot of the time, we'd fire up the game and start playing it, and we'd strip out a lot of the lower level music stuff because you really don't need much at all.
As you say, a lot of it is done by visuals and by the other sound design.
Yeah, and the player is really listening out for cues from the alien and what's happening in the world. So you don't want to be plastering it with loads of kind of a wall of sound.
And you don't want the music to be giving the player a clue as to where the alien is.
Yeah,
it needs to, it's responsive to him rather than to it.
There was a time in the early builds where I went to the audio team and I said, listen, when I'm playing the game, I know what's happening because the music's telling me the alien's about to come. So they had to kind of rewrite the scripting and how that was working so that wouldn't happen.
Oh, wow. So yeah, I always find it so interesting. I've talked to a lot of game composers and just kind of trying to, it feels so chaotic, but it also feels so organized at the same time, just how the music comes together and everything in the final product.
It is more chaotic than other forms, but just simply because you are all working on it at the same time. So it's got to come together, and there's not really any way around that. You can't finish the game and then write the music like you do with the film.
It's out.
Right.
But also, it just wouldn't work that way.
Yeah.
The music, it's a big part of it because it's part of the interactive experience. You can't just slot it in afterwards. It's Yeah, it is. It's kind of organised chaos. Yeah,
but I love the process of working in games. It's like a kind of the coolest DVD extras you've ever seen. Whenever you go down to the studio, it's always really exciting to see what everyone's doing. Everyone's really excited about the process, and I absolutely love it.
And it's new technology, new media, new art forms, and it's interesting.
Yeah,
absolutely. And so now you worked on another great game franchise that I love, and completely other end of the spectrum, LittleBigPlanet 3 for the PlayStation 4. So now this game is more non-linear, more platforming. There isn't kind of a traditional story or narrative, but I mean, so how do you approach this game? What are the musical goals for a game like LittleBigPlanet?
We can't talk specifically about LittleBigPlanet 3 because it's not out yet.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
But we've worked the franchise quite a bit, and it has a really particular sound, the LittleBigPlanet sound
that was set up from the first game.
Yeah.
Which is a lovely sort of. It's the sound is like how Sackboy looks, isn't it? Homemade, but kind of serious but fun at the same time.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I love the game, and I just always wondered, like, how, what are you drawing from? The visuals? Is it the colors? Is it,
With all games, we try and get as many visual cues as we can. We get a lot of designs and printouts sent home. We have, cover our walls in stuff when nobody's here to see them.
But definitely how the characters move, what their environment is like, all of that. That's what we do when we're starting a games project. We take all that and somehow we put it into our brains, and it kind of comes out as music.
Well, no, but there's big things like the pace of how a character, the speed of a character moving. And you can really change the feel of that with the music. So you've got to be really careful. So you've got to have as much visuals. Even if they don't have a build of the game, even drawings and showing the weight of characters, it really does influence what you're doing.
So kind of looking at games as a whole, is there something about video game composing that offers you as a composer something that film and television can't offer in terms of creativity or freedom or anything like that?
Yeah, it's new. It's new, and there's still there's boundaries to be broken and rules to be broken and new things to be done. That's what's exciting for us.
We haven't done a game yet where they're not trying to break new ground in some form of technology or design or something, and everyone's really young and excited in the industry, and that's kind of I think that's the kind of biggest difference really to all the other industries. It's so young. And every game you do is there's a break. Look what we've done, the lighting here, or the design here, or the the physics engines, or the music system. There's always a big kind of technological
breakthrough. Of innovation.
Yeah,
and it must have. Like I guess what it was like in the early days of film, as the whole world was being invented.
Yeah, right.
That's what excites us. Yeah.
So kind of looking at not just games, but films as well. What are your favorite genres to score? What kind of music do you really love to write and kind of sink your teeth into?
It's not really a genre. We like things with grit. That sounds a bit ambiguous, but we like things that have grit to them and
yeah. I guess we default.
He's looking at me like I'm crazy saying that.
No, I guess we default to dark, but then sometimes when you're kind of sometimes when you're kind of pushed in a way that you wouldn't kind of go normally, that's when the most interesting things happen. Yeah. So I don't know. It's not. For us, what gets us excited is a good story and beautiful visuals, and that's what does it for us, and then that's what we want to write music for.
Yeah, a lot of our stuff we do is. We try and play everything. We've got a lot of instruments, from synths, analog synths to handmade kind of custom instrument stuff. We kind of play everything.
Having said all that, we're probably not the go-to guys for rom-com.
Well, no, but we do. But grit doesn't mean down. LittleBigPlanet has a realness to it and a grit to it, even though it's little kids characters or not, little sack boys and stuff. But I like a handmade kind of feel, and that doesn't mean it can be synths as well. But I like hands on. I like playing keys and playing instruments.
We start all music we write. We always start from something, from playing. Yeah. So it has a real heart to it.
And that's amazing. I love hearing that from composers, definitely to echo that in your sound and all that. But that also kind of leads to my final question, which I ask every composer at the end of every interview. So since there are two of you, I'd like you to maybe wait till you both have an answer. So before you kind of give your answer, so you don't influence each other. So the question is, if you could score any film ever made with no disrespect to the original composer or the score itself, what film would you choose?
Oh, we were just discussing this. Somebody in the UK, I'll not talk about it, has just rescored a film over here, and we were talking about how
it's a fine line. That's
yeah.
a really fine line, because a lot of the trouble with us is a lot of films that we love because of the music.
And I think that's a difficult one for composers. Like, I'd love to say Blade Runner, but Blade Runner is one of the most fantastic, genre defining scores.
Oh, of course, yeah.
I would have said Alien.
Yeah, but Alien was scored to Alien. But even then, but I wouldn't rescore the original film because the score's perfect.
No, we're going to be really annoying and say that we would like to do something that hasn't been invented yet.
Okay, that's actually, no one has said that before, so that's the first answer there.
I've got all kinds of things in my head, but Tron, but Tron you could do, but I wouldn't sound like. But then somebody's just on the new Tron. I don't know. I couldn't tell you.
That was quite a big act called Daft Punk.
Daft Punk did a bit of Tron. Or I'd rather see Aphex Twin rescoring something. Maybe that would be an easy.
That's not the question.
Oh, I know. Okay, sorry. No, nothing.
We could tell you the films we love, but they wouldn't necessarily be the ones we'd want to rescore, because
it has to be something new.
Yeah. Sorry, that's really annoying, isn't it?
Oh, no, it's perfect. No, I mean, the whole point of the question is not to kind of rescore it, but like if you had the chance, and pretending that score never existed, what kind of film would you be like? I'd love to go, play.
I'd like to do a western. I'd like to do a western.
I guess science fiction, good gritty science fiction like Blade Runner or Alien.
Wow, that's two very different answers too.
Yeah.
Westerns are my favorite genre. I mean, I love Once Upon a Time in the West. I think is my favorite film of all time. So that's strikes a chord with me, definitely.
Yeah, definitely.
But
maybe a science fiction western.
Yeah.
Not
Firefly.
or Wild Wild West.
Yeah.
Oh, they gave it a try with Cowboys and Aliens, and I don't know if it came out.
Let's not talk about that. Firefly was good though. That had a nice theme. That was a great series and film. I loved that.
That would have been good.
All right, Greg Edmondson, he did an amazing job. Yeah. But Joe, Alexis, thank you so much for your time. I had questions for you guys, but it's been such a pleasure to chat with you guys, and congratulations on all the big projects, and I look forward to everything that's to come.
Great,
Thank you very much. Nice to meet you.